morning. Happy Friday morning. Welcome to the Dr. K Show. It is a wonderful day, though there's a little overcast. And our guest today is from Florida, and his name is Joe. Look, when I saw it, I couldn't say that. And then it was so easy. Wojcik, right?
Right.
All right. Hi, Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Dr. K, and how about yourself?
I'm doing great myself. Now, Joe is from Florida, so tell us what it's like down there today.
We got a beautiful, probably 78 degrees, gonna hit 82 today. So it's a very nice day here in Florida, since we just moved here a year ago from Massachusetts, and all my good friends up there are experiencing the cold.
Oh, yes. Oh, we all are jealous. All right. Now, Joy is going to be talking to us today about what every parent needs to know to end America's bullying epidemic. Now, I know a lot of ears perked up, and I can't wait to get to you, Joe. I've got a couple of announcements to make, okay?
Very good.
And we're going to get started with answering that question. I'm ready to find out the answers. Are you ready to give them, Joe?
I am ready, and I know the answer to your question, but I'm not going to give it to you.
Okay. It's like I don't want to get away too quick.
No. I think it was a great unit, and they did some outstanding things for our country.
Yes, they did. Hey, look, I tell you what, Joe, if they don't know the answer by the end of the program, you can tell.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Now, what every parent needs to know to end America's bullying epidemic. Bullying has always, from the beginning, there have always been bullies, but now it's a big deal.
It is. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have the internet, and cyberbullying has become a very growing issue in our country. Bullying, as you know, has existed for as long as I can remember. I was bullied as a child. I'm now 62 years old, and so it has been around for quite some time. But I think now it's getting a lot of attention, and this internet really adds to it.
I didn't realize that there could be internet. Oh, yes, there is internet bullying.
Oh.
Give us some examples for some people who are getting ready to say what I was getting ready to say until I realized.
Well, what happens now is because of the internet, people can be somewhat anonymous in their texting of messages. It's also a way of sharing information, so that tends to be another issue that exists. Oftentimes sharing rumors, taking various photographs and altering them.
Right.
Like we really encourage children not to post any pictures on the internet, because once they let it go off that mouse, it's no longer theirs, and it's accessible by anyone, and they can do anything with it.
Yeah, and I saw movies of teen suicides as a result of pictures being placed on the internet, ruining reputations, hurting families. You are absolutely right.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I can really empathize with children who find themselves in a very desperate situation, because when I was called Yubby, and that was my name when I was bullied as a child, I attempted to take my life 3 times.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, that's why I have this mission and have a foundation called the Yubby Foundation, that I go and raise money from sponsors to put my programs into schools free of charge, because I truly understand what it means to be desperate, not to understand that I can stop it and let it lead me to a point of despair because of the pain.
Oh, well, tell me and my listeners, what does Yubby mean?
Well, Yubby came about because there was a song in my childhood called Yummy, 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 I Got Love in My Tummy. And it just so happened to be at the Anthony's Pool in Adams, Massachusetts, that the bully who had been picking on me one day in they had an auditorium, looked at me and said, "Hey, you know what, we got a new name for you." And that's when he came up with Yubby.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, and that held for 4 years.
Oh, my goodness. Yummy happened like that.
Yeah, and so it was just an added torment because, again, I was being bullied already, as many kids are. I really didn't have supportive parents, and back in those days, you didn't even think of going to your principal or teacher and telling them that kids are picking on you. It was just not an acceptable thing. Today, it's much different.
Either. You wouldn't do it today either. That's a big deal. I was talking to some kids about it. And, of course, the word is snitch.
Of course.
And you just can't be that. You've got to protect that bully.
Well, and I'm glad you raised that point, Dr. K, because when I do my performances in schools, I talk exactly about that. What the difference between being a snitch or a squealing and what reporting is. Reporting is really when you're trying to protect someone, be it yourself or someone else. And so tattling really has to do with incidental things that could be happening, where you see kids doing stuff just to get them in trouble, you go and tell someone. That's snitching. But when we talk about reporting, it's really about protecting. And every student has a right to be in that school. They have a right to be protected, and they have a right to be safe. And that's why it's incumbent upon children to understand the difference between reporting and squealing.
All right. I like what you're saying. Okay, it's like your first comment was, your first question, what can we be doing to protect our children?
Well, the fact that we can't stop bullying, it will never stop because it's part of our culture. Parents, it's critical for them to bully-proof their child, and that's why I offer my free guide to bullying on my internet site to help parents be able to bully-proof their child. They have to know what signs to look for. They have to know when their child is withdrawing. They have to know how to pursue the proper procedure in reporting the event to the school administration. And it's really about, at the end of the day, developing relationships with their children. And that's critical. They have to have that dialogue of bullying itself on the table for discussion in the home before the child goes to school.
All right, that's a good thing. Now, we've got to go to commercial, but I want to step back a little bit when we come back and talk a little bit about reporting and snitching. We've got to put this really into our heads about what the difference is and what the outcomes should be of these two differences. Okay?
Great.
So when we come, you're listening to the Dr. K Show here on Radio 1240 WCEN. Okay. Welcome back to the Dr. K Show. Boy, you should have been with us during the break. We were talking about a lot of things that are going on because bullying is such a big deal here and in lots of places. And Joe, we want you to give your website as much as you can so that the listeners get pencil and paper, get ready, because if you need some help with this or need somebody, need to get his book, and because we're going to talk about that too, we want you to get that website. Okay, Joe, I want to tell you that not too long ago we had a listener, and this listener was talking about the bully himself or herself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't don't be worried about your kids and not saving your kids, but consider the bully too. But I want to talk first of all about what you're talking about is how can we protect our children from this, and then maybe we can get into what's the problem of the bully.
Right. And first of all, I'll say that anybody who wants to get any information that I have created, they can go to my website, www.joethebiker.com. And I also would like to explain that as a bullying expert, I created this persona of Joe the Biker. And I'm have a very rough facade. I look like a big tough guy, and that's why as Joe the Biker, when I go into schools, the students resonate with me. I do rap music, I have tattoos, and they see me and they think I'm this big tough guy, and I go on to explain to them that I'm just like them, a regular person, and that they have to not judge people by the way they look. They have to really take the time to listen and watch what a person does in order to determine who they are. So I use this persona, which is very effective, especially in elementary schools. And I like to put my work there because I like to work with students that are young, that are moldable, and by 7th, 8th grade, they're already developed. So that's very critical. I think the number one thing, though, Dr. K, if there is a number one thing to be able to bully-proof a child, that is for parents to develop a channel of communication with their children.
Okay.
We live in a society today that's very fast-moving, very active. And years ago, families used to sit down and eat together. Research has told us that families that sit down together and eat have 25% less behavioral problems with their children. And what this gives parents is an opportunity to get feedback on what's happening in the child's life. So that dinner has an objective more than just to eat. It's really an opportunity for parents to create this dialogue and have this exchange. And parents have to take advantage of that time to ask, well, what's happening in your life? Then this is what happens. A parent, typically, if they sit down and eat with their children, they see them on a normal basis. When there is something happening in their life that's causing them to react in a negative way, it's easily to detect these very subtle messages. You know, we can talk about if your child comes home and they got bruises, scars, ripped clothing, damaged school property on them. You know, those are obvious signs of being bullied.
Right.
And a parent can pursue it. But the key here is to look for subtle changes. And that's when you detect them or how a child responds to a question. So that's critical. And if a parent can't sit down every day, at least to talk to their children at dinner, they should take the time every night before the child goes to bed in a very private setting to have an exchange with them, to find, you know, very casually, how's things going, you know, who are your friends, what's happening at school, questions of this nature. Because when there is a change, they're very capable of detecting it. And I think that is a number one way to bully-proof their child, because they'll be able to know that something's wrong in that child's life and they can take action. And that's the parent's job, to be the advocate.
Right. And I like the way you said detect change. And it's not all physical. Sometimes you can just look in your child's face, especially if you spend enough time with your child. You can look in their face and see the difference.
That's a grand slam home run.
Yes, you can see that something is going on.
Yep.
And then you got to make them feel comfortable to relax them so they can release.
That's right. And that's why they're so important to talk about bullying. Because here we're talking about the bully. Now, I address the bully when I'm at schools. Because I also want to protect children, but I want to help the bully too. And make children understand that if you are targeted by a bully, it's really not you who has the problem. You may be different, but it's really the bully who has the problem. Something is happening in that child's life that's causing them to come to school and to act mean. And that said, it's very important for the bully to understand that something's wrong in their life and that they can come to the school, talk to a counselor, a teacher, an administrator, and explain. My wife and I have fostered over 100 inner-city at-risk teens over 14 years.
Wow.
And we have seen the end results of what happens in homes. And so many times children have issues because there are issues in the home. That's the thread that connects back from the bully. Why they become a bully, we can usually draw that thread right back to the house.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, that's very important. And so we need to know. I was talking to a group of kids not too many days ago, and I was saying to them that you've got to know this. This is very important, and it's really what you said, that the bully is the person that has the problem.
Right.
There's something wrong in the bully's life. Sometimes we need to know that so that you won't feel that the bully is so strong. It kind of takes away the power of the bully in your mind.
You hit it on the head. You hit it on the head, you know, and I try to make students, I empower them to feel okay just the way they are. They are perfect. And when a child understands that they're okay, that they're perfect just the way they are, there's nothing right or wrong about them at all, then that takes the bully's power away completely.
Absolutely. And one kid told me, I said, now you keep that in mind. When the bully says something, what might you say back sometimes? And one kid said, well, I would tell him that I'm going to pray for you.
Oh, wow. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. You know, and I do. I wrote a rap song called It's a Name, Just a Name. And the whole basis of the song, because usually bullying in a third, fourth grade, and that's really where it starts, tends to be around name calling. And so I try to make children understand, it's just a name. It can't drive you insane. It's a royal pain. You just got to walk away and let it go. And that's the critical part of it, because when you start getting this exchange, that's when it kind of escalates. So a child who's being targeted, they got to be able to laugh it off. They got to be able to walk away and say in their own little head, hey, guess what? It ain't me. That dude's the one who's got the problem. I'm okay just the way I am. And that's self-confidence. And that even with an adult, that applies.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Can I hear a little more of your rap?
Oh, come on. Well, I it's interesting that you say my rap, because I created my final rap called Say No to Bullying Today. And it really is a song I wrote as a country western one. And when I went into my first inner city school and I had all these students looking at me with my guitar saying, what is this guy doing here with this type of music? I left and I said, Joe, we got to turn all these into raps. And so I had a teacher actually help me with that particular song. And changed it into a rap, which all of a sudden became a grand slam at schools. The kids get up, they clap their hands, they think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, that sounds really good. That's a good way to reach some kids.
It is.
It's not expected.
That's right.
Yeah, and sometimes I tell them, I said, sometimes you can diffuse a bully by saying the things that's totally unexpected.
Well, and that's what Joe the Biker, you know it. That's what Joe the Biker does, is that, he comes out there and they look at him, they expect something different, and the next thing you know, they're hearing this stuff come out of his mouth about, being okay and knowing that the bully's got the problem. They got to come together as a community. They got to learn to intervene when they see somebody else being hurt. They got to protect people at their school, and they jump on it. And then that's the amazing part about it. At the end of my presentations, I have sometimes 150 students lined up in order to get my autograph on this super card that I give them. It's a big postcard with my on a motorcycle with me, and they think it's really cool.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me ask you about this, because now I'm picturing you. You said big dude on a motorcycle. Do you have a beard?
I have a big mustache.
Big mustache.
Yeah, I'm bald-headed. I'm 6'3". I'm a weightlifter, and I'm with this big white. You want to call it a handlebar, but it's more a Fu Manchu. They look at me when they see my tattoos and my wraparound glasses. They think it's a real gas.
Oh, then I can see that image. They would look at you and think you would never be bullied.
Yeah. And here's the rap for you. It's a name, just a name. Don't let it in your brain.
Hold it. We got to go to... Welcome back to the Dr. K Show. We have a little rap to show you, for you to listen to. But I want you to know, I was talking to Joe, and I was trying to actually picture him in the auditorium or talking to some kids. And here's this big guy with tattoos and a big beard and a biker's jacket coming in. And you know that those kids are saying, this guy has never been bullied. How is he going to talk to me about being bullied? But Joe, tell them what you do after you with your rap and after you do all of that.
Well, that entry is very powerful. And then I actually put up a picture of me when I was in elementary school, when I was very heavy. showing them exactly what I looked like back then, trying to really drive the point home that things change, that what we look like when we're in elementary school is just a temporary thing, and eventually we grow up to be adults and our bodies change, everything changes, and that's when you can see it in their eyes. They go, wow, we can't believe you look that way. How could you have been bullied? And I said, well, because back then I was very different too, and I was overweight, and kids identified me as that, and they picked on me because of it.
Wow.
And people want to see that picture, by the way, or even what I do in schools. They can go to my website, www.joethebiker.com, under schools, and there are samples of my performances in schools, so they can see what I look like when I walk in and I do my thing.
All right. That sounds good. And we see a picture of you as Yabi?
You do.
Oh, my goodness. I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Now, I do want to ask you this. Now, you talk a little bit about the family or the parents that bullies come from. And you asked, did we somehow lead our son or daughter to bullying others? Tell us about that.
Well, that's a good question. And in talking to students, we typically say when you were born and everybody was in their cribs, there were no bullies.
Right.
None at all. It's something that happened from the time you were born to the time you came to school that caused you to act this way. And that's why it's important for parents to know there are certain things that will actually develop a bully. And one of them is permissive aggressiveness. So if you live in a home where there's a lot of yelling and screaming, where name calling is allowed, where that type of behavior is not corrected, when there's confrontations amongst spouses, arguments, that tends to lead a child to go to school and say, well, it's okay at my home. It's okay for me to do it here at school. So it's important that parents lead by example. The other thing, too, and I know many of your audience may even disagree with this, but it's actually behavior correction, spanking. Spanking has very negative components, and research over the last 25 years continuously verifies the fact that there is absolutely no need to touch a child. I've had all those children. I've never hit a child in my life. I've used other corrective behavior. So when a child is spanked, it lowers their self-esteem. And if a parent's even angry when they spank their child, a child understands that when they are angry, it is okay to hit. So they go to school, and if they get upset with somebody, they hit you. So where did they learn it? They learned it at home.
Learned it at home.
Right. And that's why it's important for parents to understand they are examples. From the time that child is born, a child is like a sponge, and they absorb everything. And so when parents behave negatively at home, they're teaching their children on how to behave.
So you can teach your child by your behavior to become a bully.
That is absolutely correct. I just recently had it at a school in Taunton. I did 1,200 students' presentations in one day, and after one of my presentations, a student called another student a name. So the principal came up to me during my break and said, Chief, when you're done, can you talk to the student? And I sat down in the principal's office with him, and I asked him a couple pointed questions. One, do you have brothers and sisters? He says, yes, I have 5. And I says, at your home, are you allowed to call each other names? And he said, of course. And I looked at him, the principal, and I said, well, what do you need me for? There's the answer. It's acceptable in his home, so he thinks it's okay to come to school. So parents can't say, don't do what I do. It's the opposite. Children will do what their parents do.
All right. So we got to get this in our heads, especially parents. Many parents we hear say things like, I can't do anything with him or her. It started with the parent.
It always does. And parents have to be very calm in their approach to discipline. As my wife and I, we used to have to see a psychologist on a monthly basis when we were foster parents. And most of it was training, behavioral training on how to respond to things that are happening in a home. So most of the responses were very impersonal, very calm. If we had a disagreement, my wife and I typically would do it privately and not in front of our children that were there.
Oh, that's another thing. Say it again. Don't argue in front of your kids if you can help it.
That's right. And if you disagree, then that's okay, but go off privately and have your discussion in your bedroom, because if you start yelling and screaming, and my wife and I never did that anyways, but if you start having this contest between who's got the loudest voice, again, what are you teaching your children?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now, there's in schools, this is the thing, anti-bullying program. Can you tell us what some of them have been like, and do they really work?
Well, overall, most of the anti-bullying or programs that are out there, like mine, which is very focused on character building and creating a dialogue with the parents. That's what I focus on. The reason why most of the programs and laws are ineffective is that we can't stop bullying in our culture. And, at the end of the day, helping a child feel they're okay just the way they are, and it's the bully that has a problem, is critical. But most of these programs, they create a dialogue in the classroom around bullying. But until parents begin to raise children with respect and with the attitude of inclusiveness, we, with all the programs on this planet, cannot change it.
Oh, wow.
It goes back to the home. I really mean that. In our state of where I was from in Massachusetts, you had to take a course and a test to get a driver's license. You had to take a course and a test to get a pistol permit. And anybody can become a parent. So there isn't sufficient training for adults to help them nurture a child properly and an understanding, because we typically do it through osmosis. And if it wasn't for all that training I had as a foster parent, I would have really never understood the proper way to raise a child. So I think parents, I know they try their best, but they really have to understand that everything they do in that home is just a mirror reflection of what that child will become.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, now tell us about your book, because we want to talk more about that, and we want to tell our listeners how they can get it. But in this segment, tell us a little about what led you up to writing it and what's in it.
Interesting. I was in an accident at 30 years old that took me 17 years to heal from. I lost the use of my left arm for 5 years. And during those years, I started to meditate and get my health back. And I started to get flashbacks of what happened to me in my childhood. And it explained why I had gone through some 30 years of life the end result of being bullied is that you can become a bully. And I was a very angry, I abused substances, I was a violent person, and never understood why. And when those meditations started to reflect my childhood, I began to understand why I was so angry. Yeah. And so it was a motorcycle ride on the way back from Tennessee. I was in Cherokee, Tennessee, coming back to Massachusetts, that I got this strong feeling about writing my memoir about what happened to me and how I changed my life as I eventually did heal. And then I felt so strong about helping children. I didn't want any child to ever find themselves at that point of desperation. I'm telling you, that's a terrible place to be. I don't want any child. And I start choking up when I talk about it, because when you think of taking your life because you can't make something stop and you're all by yourself, it's a terrible place to be. And I felt motivated at that point in time that was it. I was going to go into schools. I strapped a guitar on my back and I jumped on my motorcycle and I started going to schools.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Did you design a program or a talk, or you just speak from experience? Or
I am always designed as a PowerPoint presentation, and of course over the years it has continuously grown and been modified now with the rap music and flames going up on the screen. So
my God.
I always thought that the best tool to use was using my name, Yubbie, Yubbie, as an acronym to explain what to do around bullying. So from the very beginning, I said I was called Yubbie, and now I use Yubbie as a tool. It doesn't hurt me anymore to be called that. You can call me any name you want. I feel okay about myself. And now this thing that hurt me so much back when I was in elementary school, I'm going to share with you and give you the tools out of it to help you.
Okay. You've got 2 books.
Right.
Tell us the names of each book.
Well, the first one is Yubby, The Fall and Rise of an Everyday Joe, and that's more my memoir about the flashbacks. It talks about many of the foster children that we had that became tremendous success stories in their life, and how my perception of life changed. My second book is called Call Me Yubby, and that's for students in 7th and 8th grades. It's a good read to build empathy. And my third book, which is a workbook I use in schools, but now I'd like parents to get it, because that book itself, and it's the Say No to Bullying Today workbook. Parents can bring it into their home, and I have a testimony from a parent who did that, whose child was being bullied, and took the time to read this workbook and work with their child, and the bullying stopped. The child felt great, and it changed his life.
Oh my God.
And they can all get it at my website, www.joethebiker.com.
So you have 3 books.
I do.
And the last one is like a workbook.
It is a workbook. It's the one that I use when I put it into schools, but I suggest parents use it too, because its objective is to create a dialogue. There's exercises, there's homework assignments, so it gets the topic on the table. It really makes them talk about it, and at the same time it gives them valuable tools. And the parents are involved because there's exercises that they can do with their children in the workbook, about talking about where prejudice comes from, where bias comes from. This is so important in our society today.
Can you give us an example of an exercise that a parent could do?
Well, one specifically, because we know for a fact that a child who has healthy self-confidence can walk away from bullying better than one who doesn't have a proper self-image. And one of the exercises is sitting down with a parent and asking them, well, what do you think I should become? What do you think are the talents that I have that could make me someday become something? And that's where a parent has an opportunity to say, well, geez, you know, you're really good at art because you're painting on the walls all the time of our house. You know, you're really good at music because you got those drums and you're making all kinds of percussions. Or, you know, you're really good at math. And, you know, maybe you should think of becoming an analyst or a mathematician, or, you know, taking time to investigate on the internet. What kind of vocations are out there for someone who has a strong ability in math? Or maybe it's athletics. So you see the dialogue that's taking place?
Oh, yes. That's confidence building.
Of course. And now the child starts feeling good about themselves. You're helping the child as a parent investigate what their future may be, and that helps build that confidence. And before you know, that child feels okay about themselves. That's the ammunition they need to walk away from a bully.
That is well said, well said. Well, we've got to stop this time for a break, but you know what we didn't do? We didn't do your rap when we came back. You were right in the middle of it before we went to the last break, so we're going to have a little bit of that, too. Okay, you're listening to the Dr. K Show here on Radio 1240, WCEM AM. Welcome back to the Dr. K Show. Well, guess what? While we were on break, I had a chance to take a look at Joe on the website. Guess what, everybody? He looks exactly like Hulk Hogan. Exactly. So can you imagine Joe walking into an assembly looking like Hulk Hogan, talking about he himself being bullied? Oh, this has got to be an amazing kind of thing. You really have an amazing program, I could tell, just by looking at that website. So give us that website again. People have got to see this.
www.joethebiker.com.
All right, www.joethebiker.com. You gotta go. And then see him walking across that stage. That is really something. Now, I don't have an answer to my history question, and Joe said that he knew the answer, and he's going to tell you what it is. Let's go over the question first, though. named the first African American flying unit in the U.S. military in 1942. And you had a choice of A, the red tail flying unit, B, the blue tail flying unit, or C, the Tuskegee flying unit. Joe, tell them which unit it is.
Tuskegee.
Yeah, Tuskegee, C, Tuskegee flying unit, right. And Joe was familiar with it. He said he saw, did you see that on one of the documentaries that they had on TV about it?
I did. Because I have an interest in the military, I had the opportunity, and I watched it with some of my foster children to give them a understanding and respect of where they came from. Because again, we had many inner city children of many cultural backgrounds, and I think it's important for a child to have pride.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Now, can we go back and you remember the rap that you were giving us before we had to interrupt? I was really excited about that.
Well, here's one of the stanza. It's a name, just a name. Don't let it in your brain. It's a name, just a name. It can't drive you insane. It's a name, just a name. It's a royal pain. You are the one who has to walk away, not even giving them the right time of day.
All right, yeah. Hey, do you have that on your website?
You could go to my YouTube. If you go to my site and you go to YouTube, you can hear actually 4 of my songs.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Oh, well,
I just copyrighted all of them, and I'm hoping that I can produce them.
Oh, that would be good. And just to have them played in the classroom sometimes is all that's needed to make kids feel better.
Well, to even add to that, when I go to schools, I leave 5 3 by 2 foot posters in the school with me on a motorcycle and a comment on the bottom, join my community where everyone's respected and protected, because I try to reinforce my message, and they can see my poster on a wall, or if they're not even looking at it subliminally, they're picking up and they can see that message all the time.
Oh, right. That is really cool. That's good. Now, let me ask you this. You've got 3 books. I want everybody to remember this. You've got 3 books. One is Yubby the Fall and Rise Up, Any Everyday Joe. Now, that's the book that tells mainly about your life, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, and what does the second one? What does the second one tell us mainly about?
The second one, Call Me Yubby, is in a journal entry form of a young man, Yubby, who's been bullied. It's a nonfiction book, but at the same time, many of the stories actually happened to me, and it really helps children create empathy around bullying and helps children to build self-confidence, because this kid who's really tormented gets a mentor, and that mentor helps him realize the positive parts of him and helps him to really be successful as a musician. And I'm actually the mentor and the victim in the book.
That's you.
Yep.
And the victim.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. Now, the first book, Yubby, The Fall and Rise of Any Everyday Joe. Basically your life.
Yep.
And Call Me Yubby.
Yep.
You tell stories in this book.
Yep.
Okay, and parents can get an idea of, our kids can get an idea. Is it written for kids can read it?
It is. It's actually written for 7th to 8th graders.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, kids can feel, they can empathize with you, right?
Correct.
All right, so that's that book. And the third one, what is that called?
And that's Say No to Bullying Today, the student workbook.
Say No to Bullying Today, and that's a student workbook. And they get to write in it?
They do. There's exercises in there that they can fill out. It creates dialogue with their parents. It's a fantastic book. It's a powerful tool, and I have a testimonial on my website from a parent who read this and had an exchange with their child, and it resolved the entire bullying issue in their child's life.
Oh, wow, that is good. Now, and we can get this Let's do your website again.
www.joethebiker.com.
www.joethebiker.com. That is really cool. And you've got to go to this website, and you've got to see this. Now, what are some of the places you've been?
Well, I've been in front of over 120,000 students in the last 3 years. So I covered pretty much New England area, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, down to Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and now I'm working very strong down here in Florida. But this is a grassroots project, and I'm willing to go anywhere in the United States to present. And I try to do it through my foundation, which is the Yubby Foundation, that gets donations from individuals and corporations that support these programs in their school system, in their community. So anybody who wants a performance can go to local banks or corporations and get money to actually sponsor my presentations.
Oh, that's a good thing, because I was wondering how you got down to New Jersey. I think you said New Jersey, and skipped over Maryland, went to Florida.
Yeah, I try to go everywhere that anybody wants me, because I think it's so important to help children with this topic.
Oh, it is. It's very, very important. Now, I want something. Can we get a brochure or something up here in Maryland?
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of all my stuff, including the books, for you to take a look at. And if you want to post it on your website or link it to mine, that would be fantastic. I have learned one important thing, Dr. K, and that was from my accident. I understood for the first time in my life that we are born to have a purpose. Everyone, every single one. And we're given that special talent to help us to do it. And the critical thing is that
5 seconds.
We're here to serve everybody.
All right. See you on Monday. This is the Dr. K Show here on Radio 1240 WCEM.